Hello everyone, I'm here with International Master Mark Heimann, who just won his game today. Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I literally have no words. I'm definitely over the moon right now, just with this whole tournament, with this game. So
we had an interview earlier today, and you were kind of excited with your draw earlier against Grandmaster Aram Hakobian, and now you get the chance to take down Grandmaster Nicolas Theodorou, who has had a great performance in US Masters, the previous event that you played as well, and played against Fabi earlier. But tell me through your thoughts about the game.
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, when I got this pairing, I was pretty scared. I feel like Theodorou is, indeed, every time I've seen him play, actually, he just is putting on incredible performances and incredible just, creativity and just overall quality of play. And plus also, at this point, I'm playing white. I'm on a good score. I'd be happy to play really conservatively. And Theodorou is also just a very ambitious player. And I feel like one of the people who, would not let me off the hook, even if he's playing black, even if I'm doing well in the tournament. So I honestly came in, I was I'd kind of love to just, make peace, but I was also expecting it to be a fight, and that's exactly, I guess, what we got.
And you chose the Rui Lopez?
I chose the Rossolimo Sicilian, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So again, I feel like this is an opening that is often a very strategically complex one. So again, like I said, even though I kind of would like to be peaceable, but I just figured that wasn't going to happen, so I decided would as well make a scrap out of it. I played D4 against Fabiano at the US Masters, but decided we'd try something a little bit different here. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. I prepared for a lot of things. He surprised me as early as move 3 with the Knight of 6 move, which has become trendy in somewhat recent times.
And which moment do you feel that you started getting the advantage?
That's a really good question, and maybe the engine will just invalidate whatever I have to say. But Knight of 6, Knight C3 is pretty standard. After he played the G6 move, I was surprised. When he played, he would later transpose to what I knew when he went Queen C7, but I usually thought black goes Queen C7, tries to thrust a knight into D4 and closes up the center, which is eventually what he did a couple moves later. But he'd already committed to this bishop G7 setup, and then you'll see that he closes the center with E5, which to me feels like, I guess it's a very reasonable plan. It maybe feels a little bit contradictory to me, but on the other hand, this is a lot like, an anti-Sveshnikov line when people will play Knight of 3, Knight C6, Knight C3, trying to not let you set up the very solid Sveshnikov, and then you go E5 and close to the center. Here, black has already both committed the Knight to F6 and committed to a kingside fianchetto, and often sometimes I feel like you will, in those Knight C3, E5 lines, you either go Knight of 6 and Bishop E7, or Bishop G7 and maybe bring the Knight to the more flexible E7 square. But on the other hand, I've gone H3, Rook E1. My bishop is on B5, whereas usually you'd bring it to C4 and target that weak D5 square all in one go. So, I guess I was a little bit surprised, and his setup felt a little bit clunky to me, but then the more I was looking at it, I was like, actually, this makes more sense for black than I was originally hoping it would. So, I
believe it was around here that the engine was
agreed.
saying.
Yeah, I think E takes D4 to me struck me as a mistake. I went Knight H2, G4. I was trying to exchange off a guard of the weak D5 square, and I thought my G4 would help clamp down on the F5 square, which is, of course, going to be a source of black's counterplay. But I kind of regretted doing this just because I then felt like, well, this G-pawn might end up being a target, and it doesn't actually stop F5 anyways. So I thought if he took back on D4 with the C-pawn, now I was threatening Queen H4. It's going to be hard to defend that pawn. If I go F3, he can just go H5, and I have no control over the F5 square. And he now...
what would you play here, though?
Probably C3 is what I was thinking, trying to immediately get the queenside counterplay started. Because if I just do nothing, he's going to go Queen H4. The G-pawn's already under attack. I go F3, weakening more dark squares. At minimum, black can go H5, exchanging off my control of this F5 square, and also opening up room for that dark square bishop to take advantage of all these dark squares I've now weakened around my king. Black could even consider F5 right away, although I like just going H5. So I would have to try to do something real quick over here, but it would definitely... it would be the fight that I guess we both came for, and like I said, honestly, against a player of Theodorou's caliber, that would have been a terrifying prospect. I was relieved to see e takes d4, and I think
he was probably thinking to open his bishop even with.
Yeah, and I think that's why, right? Because this would allow the bishop to exert more control over that c3 square when it's not blocked by the e pawn. Yeah, the bishop. So that kind of stops my plan of playing the queen side a little bit. The bishop could potentially come to e5 and try to take control of the dark squares. I think, for example, after a line like if I go f4, right, trying to roll my king side pawns, queen h4, just as an example, f5, and now bishop e5, and I'm not getting mated yet, but you can see that the engine is really not liking how much dark square control he's just taking over. And I think maybe Theodorou had something like this in mind. But
didn't play.
No, I didn't play that. Right. So the problem is, yeah, after this move g3, I think what Theodorou was just assuming is he can go queen g5, which he did, and after f3. If he goes like h5 or f5 trying to chip away at this g-pawn, I think he was assuming that I'd have to somehow exchange off this g-pawn. But really what I can do is just, whatever pawn he attacks here, I can just let him capture on g4 with a pawn. If he gets a pawn g4, that's pretty irrelevant. I'll just go f4. His extra pawn is doubled on the queen side, and then I'm going to have great light square control. When I go king g2 to defend this g3 pawn, I'll also open up my rook to come down the h file, and I was like, honestly, this position looks like it could be getting really dangerous for Theodorou right now. Already the computer says he needs to take drastic measures going b5 and trying to just like get counterplay on the queen side at any costs.
And it seemed like you're doing pretty well with the time as well, and
yeah.
The tournament is going in your favor. You mentioned to me earlier in an interview that you have 2 GM norms. You're trying to go for your final one.
Yeah.
You have reached 2,500 live rating. So, how do you feel your chances are right now?
Well, I have 4.5 points. If I play enough high-rated opponents to have a 2,600 average, I could literally lose the last 3 and get a norm. I don't know that if I lose the next 2 that I'll, continue playing opponents of that caliber, unless I play Fabi or something. But still, so again, right, I'd still have to not lose all 3, but
of course,
it seems, again, I don't want to jinx anything. It does seem the chances are really good, and I'm very excited about that.
I feel like you're a positive player, so you shouldn't think that you're losing, right? You're also doing powerlifting, which is something maybe the viewers have heard about.
Right.
How similar is that to chess?
Well, it's funny because when I first started powerlifting, I just assumed it would be the most opposite thing ever. But the reality is actually powerlifting is a pretty analytical sport as well. You're lifting weight, and at the end of the day, weight comes down to numbers, right? How much, how much weight you're putting on the bar for each of the lifts, and then you try to progress that over time. And you can't just lift one weight and then lift heavier the next time. So you have to say, okay, well, I'm going to try to I did this much weight for 5, so the next time I'm going to try to do a little bit more weight, but maybe only for 4 reps or something like that. And you have all these elaborate schemes for how you might arrange your training so that you try to progress in some dimension over time. So it actually attracts a lot of surprisingly nerdy people for something you might think is just a very meatheady sport. Actually, many of my gym friends some of them are incredibly elite powerlifters, and a lot of them are really into playing chess. They'll play online on chess.com. I don't know anyone who compete in tournaments. Certainly not at this level, but a lot of them are into it, and actually a lot of them are following along with this tournament and have followed along with other tournaments. They get very excited. Things like the quality of commentary we have is really helpful, right? Of course, having the games live broadcasted with the engine evaluation is great for them because they don't have to understand chess. They can just see the evaluation bar that tells. They can listen to the commentary and they can kind of tell if I'm doing well or not well.
Well, this is great, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. We got to go back in the studio.
Of course, yeah.
To keep up with the other games. But thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Keep up the passion, Mark. We love it. Well done. Congratulations.